us and give your perspective from your role as Mayor and Chancellor.
Good morning and welcome everyone. It's really lovely to be here. I think this cathedral, certainly over the last 2 years, as you know, we've had our ups and downs, and well, we've all been locked away and we couldn't sort of come out. But on those occasions that we have been able to meet here in the cathedral, sometimes literally with a handful of people, it has, if you look up here, you can see the open arms. And whether you have faith or no faith, those open arms are there for everybody. And I really do feel that this building welcomes all organisations, and everything that's ever gone on here, for me, has always welcomed me with open arms and has been ready to give me a metaphorical and sometimes a physical hug when allowed, of course. But it does feel that to have something like this here is very important. Now, for some people, you won't get anything out of that. It's simply a building. It looks very pretty, and you know, and that's lovely. But for others, you know, there are some wonderful signs and the beautiful colours in the windows and the messages that are around that will resonate. And I hope that the speeches that you're going to hear today, and all of the speakers, that you'll have an opportunity to converse one-to-one with them, perhaps throughout the breaks, etc., that you yourselves will get what you need to get out of today. And as I say, I welcome you all, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you.
One or two people sometimes say to me, why does a cathedral hold an event like this? This isn't what cathedrals do. Well, actually it is. Cathedrals are ancient formations, and one of their primary functions was and always has been education. They were educational spaces. So I'm very grateful to you for coming today, and for those who are taking part and helping in the conference, because you're helping to validate and to showcase one of the primary reasons why cathedrals occupy what Larkin calls serious earth. So that's why I'm grateful today that we can hold it in this space. I'm Vice Dean and Canon Pastor here at the Cathedral. I'm also chair of a group called Essex Mind and Spirit, which is a community voluntary organisation which seeks to improve and facilitate and encourage positive dialogue between mental health and faith and spirituality. And two and a half years ago, we worked with Stephen and others from the Education Department of the County Council to put on this conference. We were about to do it in 2019, I think, 2020, and then COVID struck. So praise be to God, here we are now, 2.5 years down the road. And Essex Mind and Spirit puts on a conference like this every 3 or 4 years. And our last conference was back in 2017, and we did dementia. Dementia and spirituality. And a lot of our work as an organisation actually springs from conferences like this. So I know people have got busy days. I know some of you might be able to stay all day, but there is a Mentimeter and a plenary session at the end of the day where we're going to ask you not just for your reactions to the conference, but more importantly even where you think we as an organisation can take this work. What would you want to see us as a community voluntary organisation do as a result of today? So your feedback is very important and very welcome. We organise cluster groups around the Essex and East London areas, and cluster groups, the clue is in the name really. We cluster together in a local area people who doctors, mental health workers, service users, voluntary charity workers, and many others, to try and encourage conversations about mental health in local areas. So it's lovely that once every 3 or 4 years we can do this, we can do a bigger event and call people out from all those many areas in Essex to this central point to look at a subject like this. And there could probably be nothing more crucial at the moment than child and adolescent health and spirituality, considering the effects of the pandemic and much else besides that young people are struggling with at the moment. I'm going to act a bit like a maitre d', well, I'm dressed like a maitre d', let's face it. So I will announce the events as they come through. Don't worry, don't be looking all the time at what's next. I will guide you through the day, and you'll see the workshop areas around the cathedral that are all labelled, and you all should know where you are, where you're going. Just stretch your legs for 10 minutes, and then I'll get Courtney up here to divide you into your workshops. Thank you.
Oh, okay. You must send it to me. Am I in any of your groups? Are you champions on justice? Yes. Oh, okay. Right, so thank you very much for coming to my workshop. The title of my workshop is How Does Black, Asian, Minority, Ethnic, BAME, Culture and Faith Promote Positive Mental Health and Wellbeing in Children? I'm Sidra Naeem. I'm actually the Secretary of Essex Mind and Spirit, which is the organisation which organises conference today. I'm also a qualified teacher, and I specialise in special educational needs and disabilities and mental health in children. And I'm also a Muslim chaplain. So all of those three roles fit into why I'm doing this workshop. So the first thing we're going to do is to very quickly have a look at some of the problems which may result in children within the BAME community suffering from mental health. What issues are facing our youth which may cause mental health problems? So any ideas? And I'll quickly write them up on this. Any things in particular with children or teenagers from the BAME community that can result in them becoming a little bit stressed, depressed, lonely? Racism? Good. Racism is definitely one of them. Racism?
Stigmatization.
Yes, of what?
Of the topic, the subject matter. Does not allow
communities. Stigma of mental health, yes?
Does not allow for conversation.
Excellent. Okay. Anything else?
What are identity issues?
Yes, that's definitely one. Identity crisis. Especially children who are born and brought up in this country and class themselves as British, but their skin colour is different and they don't know what they are. Yeah, that is a very, very good one and a very important one. Culture and religion. Good. This is a clever group. Okay, anything else? Bullying, yes, bullying is one of them, yes, correct. Come and sit down. Okay, anything else? Abuse. I mean, we're looking at particularly in the BAME community. That would lead to mental health.
Academic pressure.
Yes, good. That's a very good one. Well done for getting that one. We'll talk about that in a minute. Anything else?
Cultural expectations.
Yeah, definitely. Culture. I think that's about it, to be honest. Very good answers there. I'm very pleased with those answers. Okay, right. So, bullying you mentioned. Bullying because of their beliefs. Okay? Islamophobia is the top one, actually, out of all the religions, where children, they are actually hiding away, not even exposing their religious identity because of the fear of being bullied. And I've seen this myself. I'll go into schools and I'll be giving a talk on Islam, and there's somebody called Muhammad in the audience, and I'll say, Muhammad, do you pray at home? Or do you have a prayer mat? And it's no. I'm not Muslim. But I know that they are. Yeah, things like that. Okay, and racism, we already mentioned. Mental health is due to different culture, challenges such as racism, stigma, inequalities. All of that can affect mental health in young people amongst the BAME community. Language barriers, another one, or their clothes may be different, their colour may be different, and that makes them segregate themselves from the others. Identity crisis was a very clever one. And it's not just religious identity, it's British identity. We're born and brought up here, and then, there is an identity crisis sometimes. I've seen this actually quite a lot, especially amongst the ones who are born in this country. So, a lot of children who are born and brought up in this country, they may have an identity crisis. They wouldn't know where do they belong. Okay? They're born in this country, they're British, their first language is English, but the colour of their skin is different, for example. So that then creates lots of challenges on how other people see them as well. Then there's also the glass ceiling effect, especially for my parents' generation. They had to work 10 times more than the white British counterparts to get to the same top positions. In the days when my parents came to this country, 1962, my dad came here as a student, and he actually went to university here, did a degree here and a master's degree, yet still he had to work 10 times harder to get to the same position. So this is a big challenge, a lot of problems within the BAME community on, having low mood because they can't get the jobs they want. However, I must say that is getting a lot more better nowadays. There's a lot more people up there at the top nowadays from the BAME community. I'm a Deputy Lord Lieutenant, which was the first time in history that somebody who was Muslim actually became a representative of the Queen. So that was a big breakthrough. With that, we are having more Asian mayors, more Asian councillors. They are getting now to the top positions. Our Mayor of London is Muslim. It's going well at the moment, but it wasn't until now. Okay? You mentioned academic pressure. That's a very, very good one. Back home, in our homelands, doctors are actually one of the top professions, and that's the best profession that will then help the whole family in terms of finance. because there's no pension schemes back home, there's no social security systems or living allowance. So if somebody becomes a doctor, that is the top profession that can feed the family for generations. And then those people will then come here and they will drive their children forward. You've got to be a doctor, 11 plus pressure, grammar school pressure.
Didn't do any of that, can I say? Not that.
Yes, so all of that does have an impact as well on mental health. My own parents, I already explained, couldn't get to the top positions even though they were educated in this country. So there was this real drive for their children. You've got to be educated, you've got to be educated, because with education you can get to the top levels. So we did get that as well. The stigma somebody mentioned around mental health is still happening in our communities. It can be a barrier to young people from BAME communities accessing mental health services. The stigma is still there. I would say we are 10 years behind because all of that stigma comes from maybe our home countries. So here, Time to Talk has happened, so many things have happened to help get rid of that stigma, but it is still definitely there within our religions and culture. There's another one which nobody mentioned, is the genetic aspect. Especially our previous generations may have married within families or cousins or within the same tribes. And because of that, sometimes, say you've got the mental health gene in the family, it can replicate and intensify amongst the older generations. Close-knit communities, a lot of people are married within their own culture, within their own families even within their own tribes. And if there is mental health in the family, then that gene can replicate and get worse, if you know what I mean. So there is that problem as well. So how do we, within the BAME community, help our children with mental health? Okay? Has anybody got any ideas?
I think personally it's important to help them develop a sense of identity to start with.
Yes.
The more they're comfortable in their skin about who they are and where they belong and what's their role in society, the more comfortable they will be about themselves in terms of their mental health.
Definitely. So that is definitely one of them. They need to be confident about their religion and their cultural identity. You can take them back to their home countries so that they can feel proud that they are from that country. Dress them up in their ethnicity dresses and costumes, take them to parties and festivals to do with that culture, which can make them really, really confident in their, identity. Okay? So first of all, with that sense of identity, we will try and get the children to engage in activities to do with their own faith and culture. They may go to Sunday school within their own places of worship. They will engage in cultural activities, celebrations, festivals within their own culture, so that they can be proud of their identity. We can get them to dress up in different costumes and things, and that helps as well with a sense of identity, helping them to feel proud and have a sense of belonging, which a lot of people from the BAME community don't have, because they're confused. Yeah, they're British, they can speak, their first language is English, they see themselves as English, but they don't look English. And then everybody else doesn't accept them as being English. A lot of people even ask me now, where were you born? I was born in England. Where were your parents born? They were born in England. No, where were your grandparents born? Because, and then that does have an effect, does it not, on the children? Okay? Some of these are also incorporated into our faith. So we're looking into all the faiths within the BAME communities. We have regular rituals, meditation, prayer. Islam, we have a very, very good routine, 5 5 times a day. Children by the age of 7 are expected to start praying. And this structure is really, really good for mental health. Very, very good organisation, helps with memory. The other very important one, now I'm so glad that you're here in this workshop, absolutely loved everything that you said about channeling the emotions and all that mindfulness stuff that you said is in our prayers. So people from the BAME community, a lot of the religions, we're looking at Hinduism, Sikhism, Islam, we have a ritualistic prayer 5 times a day. This is Islam, this picture, which helps with that mindfulness and the ritual. So it organises your brain. Everything is fitted within those 5 times prayers. Within lots of prayer structure, all those positions of prayer are exercise as well. Okay, so great form of exercise, flexibility of all parts of your body, decreases tension, especially tension in the brain, decreases tightness, arthritis is reduced, and yoga as well, yoga positions, we're looking at Hindu culture here. And like yoga positions, each position is scientifically proven to get rid of negative energy. So very, very good for you. Serotonin is released. Serotonin is the main one that is released through exercise. So I've got a video here. The first speaker who we just had is talking about how to channel your emotions of anxiety and things, and we naturally within our prayer practices have got this channeling of negative energy to positive energy. I have now got a video which talks about how meditation within prayers helps with mental health in children and adolescents. Let's have a look at this video. You can read the words on the screen. Mindfulness, which is all in the modern practices nowadays, is actually meditation, which is happening in all the prayers that happen within the BAME community. Now, in some religions, children would be expected to establish prayer by the age of 7 years old, especially within Islam. So from a very early age, all of this is helping them. Okay, now if you look at the actual recitation of the mantras, the Quran, also within the black African culture, there may be singing in the churches, especially in Pentecostal churches, all helps with elevating your mood. Some of the mantras, some of the Quranic verses, and some of the religions, they have rhyming words in them at the end of verses of religious scriptures, and that makes us really, really happy, like a song. The rhythm and the rhyme helps, and releases oxytocin as well. Then at the end of our prayers, we're offloading all our problems, our emotions, our worries, our stress, our anger to God. It's a free counselling process, is it not? Free counselling process. And some of us were doing that 5 times a day. It's absolutely amazing for our well-being. Also, did you know that we show gratitude to God at the end as well? And that releases oxytocin naturally. So negative emotions wreak a lot of havoc on the body. Stress Constant anger, depression and anxiety directly affect our hormones and endorphins and influence our lifestyle choices. It is quite hard to combat these feelings alone, and it is even more difficult to change these feelings when those around us help propagate them. Scientists have thoroughly documented the link of negative emotions to poor health outcomes. And in prayer, at the end, you are offloading all of those emotions, like a free counselling process. If we don't do that, look at all of these emotions. So how emotions harm your body. Anger weakens the liver, grief weakens the lungs, worry weakens the stomach, stress weakens the heart and brain, fear weakens the kidneys. So prayer helps with all of these. And did you know that the whole process of prayer, no matter what religion you're in, the prayer rituals actually help to release all of these endorphins. And through prayer, good feelings come from 4 special brain chemicals: dopamine, serotonin, endorphins, oxytocin. Right, the other one, which is very dominant in a lot of BAME communities, religions, including Hinduism, Sikhism and Islam, is fasting. Now, did you know fasting has a huge impact on good mental health? And Dr. Mosley, who introduced the 5-2 diet a couple of years ago, who was a psychiatrist, actually looked into the benefits of fasting for your brain. Who wrote a book about fasting. He was actually a psychiatrist, and he made a very big link with good brain health with fasting. So I'm going to pop a quick video on where he talks about neurotrophic factors and things that are released.
This new book is really interesting.
Yeah, it is. Lots of non-Muslims out there, people outside of BAME.
I mean, I've lost about 19 pounds of fat over a period of about 2.5 months. And I was quite skeptical about it before I began. And then I looked into it, and the science was really impeccable. Not just about weight loss, but about all the other health improvements you get with it. And that's why I wrote a book about it. And that what makes it psychologically attractive is the fact that you're not going to be doing it for the rest of your life, if you like. You're going to do it 2 days a week. And I do it on a Monday and a Thursday, not least because that's what the Prophet Muhammad suggested many years ago. And all the great religions have advocated fasting. Well, what's striking about it is there have been a number of clinical trials now done, some here, some in the States, following up hundreds of women, hundreds of men over quite long periods of time, and what they find is that people actually feel more energetic. They feel more enthused. Men in particular find it easier to exercise while fasting. They burn more fat, that it makes you feel more cheerful. There's actually quite a lot of evidence, which is very, very unexpected. But what happens is your brain starts producing this stuff called neurotrophic factor, which is both protective against Alzheimer's and dementia, but it also makes you feel good.
So you mentioned about your brain starts releasing neurotrophic factor, which then helps to protect your brain against future brain diseases, Alzheimer's and things. Okay, so fasting is very dominant within Hindus, Sikhs and Muslims. And we're actually practicing Ramadan at the moment, and we're all fasting for a whole month. Children, as soon as they reach puberty, would be expected to start fasting, and they may practice when they're young as well. Okay. Now here is a really interesting video on how fasting helps to promote good mental health, and we're looking at the science. I really liked your talk because you looked into the science of things, and that is so important to understand how then we can help ourselves. So here is a video bespoke to looking at good mental health and how fasting helps.
What does fasting do to your brain? Effects of fasting on the brain. Professor Mark Mattson at Johns Hopkins University, Chief of the Laboratory of Neuroscience with the National Institute on Aging. He has published a number of papers that can explain how fasting 2 times a week can reduce the chances of developing Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease, which are on the rise. We've known for quite some time that alterations to one's diet impacts brain functionality. Neuroscientists have found that overfed brains are more likely to become impaired. Mattson reports that fasting causes an array of neurochemical alterations in the brain. Abstaining from food boosts cognitive function, decreases inflammation, and helps one cope with stress. Fasting is the equivalent of issuing a challenge to one's brain. The brain responds by modifying stress pathways and consequently reducing the risk for various diseases. A person who fasts empowers his brain to boost its protein production and catalyze the growth of neurons and bonds between neurons. Memory ability and learning aptitude increase in response to fasting as it stimulates the creation of ketones in mitochondria in neurons/nerve cells. Fasting even bolsters the fortitude of synapses. In some instances, fasting helps create new nerve cells from the hippocampus's stem cells. Fasting for DNA repair. Professor Mattson has also found that those who practice fasting are more likely to enjoy enhanced nerve cells that repair DNA. Fasting can protect the immune system, as refraining from food consumption helps stem cells self-renew from a dormant state. Fasting essentially destroys old, compromised immune cells and catalyzes stem cells to form a brand new, perfectly healthy cells. In 2007, a scientific review of studies centered on fasting was printed in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition. The review determined that fasting is an effective means of reducing cancer as well as cardiovascular disease. The article also provided evidence that fasting has the potential to treat diabetes. It is clear that fasting boosts the brain's health and functionality, as well as the integrity of the cells throughout the body.
Okay, so that was a video bespoke for how fasting helps to promote good mental health. Okay, let's now move on to alcohol. Now, everyone knows alcohol, obviously in excess, ends up with all kinds of mental health problems. You can ask GPs, a lot of mental health is caused by drinking, binge drinking and all of the other problems. So Muslims, Sikhs and Hindus, alcohol is forbidden completely. So a lot of the teenage problems that you get with alcohol do not exist in BAME communities. So not having, having that forbidden in the religion helps a lot. People from the BAME community definitely have a closer family structure. A lot of people may be living with grandparents or with extended families, in-laws. All of that really, really helps, because if children or teenagers have got any problems, mental health problems, you are more likely then to speak with people within the family. There's more talking, more communication, more happiness when you're doing things together as well. Also, it stops suicide, because you're worried about what other people may think within the family. There's a worry that, oh, what will grandma think? Or what will so-and-so think? And some of the children have got very strong bonds with their grandparents, and they may not then go ahead and do the suicide. This is a proven fact. Speaking to someone you trust can be the first step to getting the help you need. And the first step of getting help is within the family. People from the BAME community will have lots of family in warmer countries, so the tendency of them going on holidays, ask any teacher, is a lot more. So that alone actually really, really helps with mental health. So sunlight cues special areas in the retina which triggers the release of serotonin. This is why we get happier when we go on holiday or when the sun's out. Holidays make you happy, in particular because they contain, because there's more sunlight. Exposure to the sun also produces serotonin, SAD. We all know seasonal affective disorder, which a lot of children suffer from in this country, which could explain why you're happier in warmer countries or in the sun. Okay? So these are just some of the things which are actually incorporated within the BAME culture and religion that helps. Can anybody think of any more? I've just covered a few there. You can think of more.
I'd just like to tell
I
you
think
more.
you've got somebody here, yes.
Yeah, I was just, it was really interesting, thank you so much. And I was just thinking, because my job is about breastfeeding support and breastfeeding groups, and I would wonder if that might actually be something to be added on as well, because we do notice that people who maybe from, you know, a BAME group have got that more support within the community for breastfeeding, and that, you know, breastfeeding is actually encouraged within Islam as well. And that's,
yes,
you
that's
know,
very
that
interesting,
can
yes.
actually help. And with, you know,
Yes.
with my job, the funding is targeted at the like 6 most deprived wards in Southend, but we find that within those, the groups who are least likely to breastfeed are the poor white women white British women who actually nobody in their family has ever breastfed that they've met. And, you know,
That's
it's
a
actually quite
very,
difficult
very
without
good one. I
community
like that
support.
one. So in the Quran, it tells you to breastfeed your children up to 2 years. And that helps with the oxytocin and the bonding, doesn't it?
That's right,
And there
yeah.
are so many bonding issues nowadays, isn't there? Definitely. I mean, I'm a special needs coordinator, and a lot of children who were not breastfed may not have the bonding with their parents, and then they show autistic type tendencies as well. Yeah, definitely. That was a very good point. Anybody else? I think there was somebody on this side.
I was just going to endorse what you're saying about identity. I work with several BAME young people from various parts of the world, either around grief or just around stuff that's happened when they've perhaps gone to visit their grandparents.
Yes.
The difference in understanding of what's expected and understanding the culture, that's their heritage, but also their lived kind of culture, because they've grown up here and they relate to, you know, the young people they've grown up with.
Yes.
And when there's a bereavement, that really kind of expands that so much, and that kind of not understanding of identity, because perhaps, you know, an aunt or grandparent who lives abroad,
Yes.
so their expression of grief is so much different, but that perhaps is happening in their community where they're living now.
No,
And
that's very
understanding where
interesting.
they've come from.
Yeah, that's taken me back to my childhood. When my granddad died, he was back home in my home country. Well, my home country is Britain, but you know what I mean. And I didn't feel anything because I didn't know him. I didn't know him, so I didn't feel anything at all. 10 years later, my uncle passed away, who was in Britain, and I really felt it because I knew him better and I'd bonded with him. Now, something interesting about bereavement, which I didn't bring up actually, is people within the BAME community, they get over bereavement quicker. One, because of the extended family, the big support together. The other one is we bury the next day. So in Islam, we would bury the body the next day. Because of that, the bereavement process is very quick. Your goodbye is very, very quick. It doesn't prolong the bereavement process for a couple of months or so. Also, this strong belief also in a lot of our cultures that there's a heaven and they've gone to heaven. So we know we're going to meet them again one day. It's not goodbye. We're going to meet grandma again when we pass away. So that helps with the bereavement process. So that was a very, very good point there. Well done for bringing up the bereavement. Okay, anybody else? Did you have any comments? Because I really liked your talk. I don't know if you could relate with the prayer and stuff aspect. You know, the mindfulness and all of that is all linked, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Very good points there, though, especially about the breastfeeding and the bereavement. So, now I'm going to open the floor to comments and questions. You may have a few more, but I have dealt with the most common ones, really. Okay, so has anybody got any comments or questions?
Not a question, but rather comment to make. I think this is quite helpful, but it's kind of a generalization. Not always all those factors are helpful. I have had cases where too much family interference, too much family enmeshment has caused problems for young people because they feel judged by extended family, grandparents, they have to comply to certain rules. There's lots of boundaries. Boundaries are good for young people,
yes,
but too much boundaries sometimes make things very difficult, yes, because they're in the process of developing themselves and they want to question things and they're not allowed to question.
Yes,
So
yes, I agree with that actually, especially when in-laws are actually within the
extended
family.
families.
Yes, and then any mental health, any diagnosis, it's hidden or you don't want to
More
acknowledge.
stigmatized,
More stigma
Yeah.
in extended families, definitely. Yes, unfortunately. Anything else? What about within the African communities? Is there anything in particular? I mentioned the singing in the church.
Yes, that is very good. Actually, we are very happy on a Sunday, so that explains it.
Yes.
But on Monday, you don't know what happened. You
Yes.
know,
Yes.
Monday to Saturday.
The,
So
the religious places brings people together as
Yes.
well, your community together, and that helps with the sense of belonging,
Yes.
and also, you know, this thing about identity that we
Yes.
spoke about.
I've certainly experienced this year particularly because the Muslim community centres started working in Champswood. I've only just moved here a year ago. And my children started going regularly to maybe Friday prayers because it was Easter break they used to go to. The sense of belonging and the want to go back there again is so strong, and I feel that I've never experienced. I used to take them to mosque before as well, but it feels like they belong there and they want to go back there again. So I think the sense of belonging is really important for young people.
Yes, and that, I must say, is quite strong amongst the BAME community because we would look for places where we can go and take our children, and all of that really helps. Sunday schools help as well, and fast-breaking activities and Eid parties are coming up.
Oh yes.
Yes, so all of that. And within the Hindu culture as well, you know, they have Diwali, they have Holi, all of those things, they all help a lot.
I think the social media, in terms of youth and feeling a sense of identity, is very important. I think when like TikTok came in, everybody had this platform, they could express themselves. And I see my teenagers, they will show me random, some African women doing this prayer. And they think it's very funny because actually they are identifying, they say, Mom, this is happening in church.
They are identifying themselves with that.
Yeah, so they kind of feel happy in a way. And I remember Ed Sheeran is a British musician.
Oh, yeah.
And he did a collaboration with an African artist.
Yes.
And they did this new music. And, you know, I just saw like, they felt like it's okay to be African, it's okay to be black, it's okay to have a bit of an accent and all your family do this weird stuff every time you play. And then sometimes they're embarrassed, but they say it's okay.
Yes.
So I saw this kind of acceptance on a large scale, and I saw all these youths kind of coming out and say, look, Afro-centric kind of music is okay, this drumming is okay, and we can actually incorporate it with other things in the music scene. So I see this making them to be accepted.
Yes.
And
I also think there's more of an identity crisis problem in these areas, in Essex,
Because there's
where
not
there's
much.
less of our own kinds of people. In London, you don't get this because everybody's all the same.
From everywhere. Yeah.
Yes. Whereas here, they don't know which way to turn. You know, they sometimes hide away because there's so few of people like this. So they like to peer pressure, like to be like everyone else without being confident about their own identity.
You're talking about TikTok, and I realized recently that there are certain things which young people used to resent quite a lot in their communities where you know, they always say that their parents are very strict, much more strict to their, as compared to their white counterparts. But I find now, thanks to TikTok, my son, who's a Pakistani, British Pakistani child, he relates to a lot of black TikToks, and he says to his friends who are black that, you know, that could be my mother. You know, a mother could be very strict on that, and they can't dare to say something offensive to their mother, and they know that that's not acceptable in their community. And I think the kind of relationship that brings in between various other communities is like, actually, we're not very different to that.
Yes.
We're similar to that.
Yeah, that's social media definitely helped.
It's also the mainstream media, since in a way informing like the non-BAME community what we are like.
Yes.
Like,
Making it more acceptable. More part of
looking at the similarity, like goodness gracious me on TV. There was that other one, the Muslim
Citizen
Khan. So I mean, these are kind of things which show that everyone is human and the same.
Yeah, and we all have our culture. Even some, we embrace some of the British cultures. Like for our dinners, they'll say, no, we're not having African for dinner. We're having British. We want British breakfast. That's okay. You know, and we incorporate it and have a good balance.
I think that's the part of our children's identity. They are BAME, but they are British as well. And that's what, like as you said, the English breakfast.
Well, things are getting better, definitely. I mean, food is a lot more mixed nowadays. Everybody's having mixed different types of food, and you know, even in the media, in the adverts and things, I think there was a Boots ad I saw recently, and there was a person with a hijab on the poster. That was great. Okay, anybody else? We've got time, or any comments?
I don't know the answer to this, but you were talking about using developing culture links within particular cultures.
Yes.
And I was just thinking, can that not also be isolating because you've moved away from the whole community? You've moved into your own little group.
Yes.
I can see why you would do that, but I can also see there might be a danger with that.
Yes.
You'll become isolated.
Yes, I think there needs to be a bit of both, definitely, because when I mentioned that, I also mentioned that these children are British and born and brought up here, and their first language would be English. So it's very important then that they also mix with British people as well. Interfaith is very, very important to understand as well.
Yes.
But I was in particularly talking about people who have lost their identity. So for example, they're born and brought up here, they're British, their first language is English, but other people are not seeing them as British, and then they develop an identity crisis. It was in particular with that. So that they've got a form of identity and they feel confident that yes, I am Pakistani or I am Asian, and feel comfortable in your own skin. It was for that particular bit. But no way should they just completely integrate with their own and not mix with anybody else. I'm totally against that. You have to mix with everybody, and mixing with everybody helps with understanding other people's faiths and perspectives and everything, which is so important. You know, and you know, something really interesting. I was born and brought up in this country. I actually feel easier. I feel easier to mix with people like yourselves than I do somebody, for example, who is like me but maybe from back home, because the culture's different, very different. So these children, they do need people like the white British community to mix in with as well. I totally agree, because they may feel more at home with them because you watch the same television programs and they're educated in the system of the schools in this country, things like that.
There's a richness, isn't there, about learning about other cultures?
Of course, there definitely is, definitely. I mean, the Queen's Jubilee is coming up, and we need to mix and get into all the Jubilee parties, do we not? I do have it tough, though, I must say, but I think things are getting better within the BAME community. I think the identity crisis is getting less, because there's a lot more good role models out there. For example, The Apprentice, a Sikh lady won that, and Nadia Hussain, who won the British Bake Off. There's a lot more mayors out there that are black. I myself, I'm a Deputy Lord Lieutenant, first time in history, one of the Queen's representatives, who's of a different ethnicity.
For young people
Amazing.
To see people that they want to be like. But
I'm lighting the beacon in Basildon for the Jubilee, so I think that would be good for some of the BAME's community that think, wow, you know, there's somebody up there lighting the beacon for the Jubilee. So things like that. I think things are definitely getting better. I would definitely say that. And a lot more people are getting up to the top positions as well from the BAME community. You see that a lot more. the news, there's a lot more, you know, BAME on the television, is there not? In adverts and things, you know. It's really good, it's getting good. Racism is less, I would say, in schools as well, in comparison to when I was at school, because there's so many policies around, you know. A lot of policies nowadays around bullying, and which were not there when I was a child.
I think as well within schools there's the whole the prevent agenda and also the promotion of British values and inclusion and accepting of difference. Children from really tiny now, because it's been quite a few years, have grown up with this is how we are.
Yes, and this is very interesting because I find more tolerance amongst young teenagers than I do some of the older generation who didn't grow up with all of that. Definitely there is. So yeah, like I said, I think things are getting better, definitely, much, much more better.
And with conferences like this, more of this, teachers are also being taught, people that support young people in school also get to understand the impact.
Yes.
You know, and able to support young people to help to also understand the need to, you know, express themselves more instead of having to keep it back and take home. And again, parents are also getting to be more aware because sometimes the kids take what's being said from home. You know, when there's that, you know, trying to put that separation, but this stage, things are really getting better where parents are beginning to understand that really it's just it's our community. This is where we are. This is where home is. You know, the area we start to understand that we all need each other. The better it is. It's not about the color of our skin. It's a little about that. You know, it's just what it's supposed to make us stronger. When there is diversity, there's different ways we can, instead of like causing this separation, is actually like, you know, where we should start to harness from. If you get what I mean, like it shouldn't be something to put us away, but to bring us together to understand that we have different things to bring to the table. You know, so really, it helps the young people to grow their confidence. You know, to understand really.
I think the reporting of racism is better as well. So the police are definitely better as well. I mean, in the olden days, if there were any racist incidents when I was a child, people would be too scared to go to the police, so they wouldn't want to even report it. But now, I think the police are a lot more forthcoming, and it's enabled families to report incidents as well of racism and things, which is helping a lot as well. Okay, anybody else?
I'd like to bring my point up. It's all right. Regarding my family are all white, and I live in a very small village, and there's only one mixed race family in that village. But there's lots of black people that come to our chapel, so you know we mix as much as we can. And my daughter-in-law, who's Catholic, said to me that she thinks the reason that church is falling away is because of what you said, that you've got to have the sense of belonging, and if you haven't got that, then you don't want to go there because you don't fit in. And we have the one Asian family in our village that's right next to our chapel, and the young man comes in to do his Duke of Edinburgh and all the things. So it's fitting in and extended as they get to teenage years. They drop away, don't they, from lots of people. I think if there's more put on for them and they belong, then they're more likely to stay going to church
and come back to it
and feeling part of it. And the other point I wanted to make was about school and fitting in, and with my granddaughter's school, it's absolutely mixed from every nation possible. I have noticed that there's several children that have got eating disorders and are always on TikTok, because my granddaughter's not around, but on TikTok getting thinner and pouting and they're very young. And I just wondered what your opinion was on that, about eating disorders and children.
I think eating disorders are on the rise, on the whole, because of the way all this, slimming business and models and everything, and this norm, everybody's got to be slim. And I think it's gone a little bit overboard with the youngsters, really. And I think that with eating disorders, it's across the board, not just with people from the BAME community. I would say it's on the whole, across the board. Across the board, yes.
But what I would comment on eating disorders is generally what I experience is very high-strung young ladies in high-pressure schools, like grammar schools, are often presenting with eating disorders, and the reason is that there's an emphasis about perfection. The perfection not just in their work, in their appearances, in their achievements, in their goals. Everything needs to be perfect, and obviously the media and the culture projects a certain image of perfection for a woman. She needs to be slim, trim, well dressed, and all that. Size, I don't know, whatever size is appropriate these days. And that's kind of a thing that the girls kind of follow through. It also has a lot to do with anxiety and excessive, what we call enmeshment, where parents, grandparents, everybody's kind of on to their case all the time. Everyone's kind of not letting this young person thrive, develop, and all that pressure leads to eating disorders. Again, it runs in families as well.
Anything else? Any more comments or anything else? Yes, I will do. Yes, I will send that to Ivor, and then they will email it out to everybody. But we do have a website, and then this film will go on there. There's not much on mine really. It's all pictures. You can tell I'm a teacher, primary school teacher. By the pictures, but pictures say a lot, and the videos as well. The videos showed a lot of this technical, scientific stuff. Okay, so thank you very much for coming.
Thank you very much.
We will have time for the plenary outside afterwards.
Okay.
It's going to be full. Thank you. The workshop.
But what I did here was really great.
That's okay. I'll send the video out and then you can listen to the
it's really helpful to.
Yes.
Thank you.
Bye.
Really hoping that you've had a good morning and that the workshops that you chose were good ones. I certainly really enjoyed the stuff that I went to. Before lunch, which is to the right for those of you who are using your eyes, and for those of you using your nose, they're also left as well. We will get there. I'm excited about seeing what we have for lunch. So, but before lunch, I wonder whether there are any people who wish to reflect on what we've heard, what we've experienced so far, and connect with people so far this morning. And in particular, this is your opportunity to ask certain questions. If anybody has a question or wishes to reflect on something, it's often quite daunting to speak to such a large group, but feel free, this is your opportunity to reflect on anything you've heard, anything you've experienced this morning. Ivor's got a microphone, so you can really do it properly. You don't have to shout off your head. Any questions for Sue? Oh, lovely. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's very fascinating. Particularly fascinated about the conversation between mind and body. As a doctor, we think the mind is the one that's actually doing the thinking. At what level, in a kind of abstract term, do you think the conversation occurs? Is it the mind, through the mind, or is it like a higher level?
I'm not sure if I'm qualified to answer that. It's really more about thinking of the mind and body as a couple, and imagining them as a couple, and if they were sat on two chairs, how do they get on with each other? And what support do they need in order that they might improve their relationship? And whether, I think belief systems come into my response to your question, because for me personally, I believe that the conversations happen on a very deep spiritual level, and that mind and body are actually one. But that's my personal belief system, and what we're doing is that we're recognising that we attribute generally more cognitive thinking to mind, and more sensational thinking and feeling thinking to body. And we're trying to connect the two, because when trauma's happened, we become quite fragmented. So it's about how we can come to more wholeness.
Thank you for that question. Thank you for that answer, Sue. Anybody else with a question for Sue, or reflection, or anything else this morning? Thank you.
I'm Naeem. Just a reflection really about the pressure the current state of children and adolescents' mental health is impacting on various services, charities and otherwise in our region and across UK really. And the impact is being seen in form of staff leaving, staff burnout, staff shortages. And how does a service deal with that? The people who are left behind are noticing that national insurance levels have increased, therefore the salary that comes home is not as much as they were getting before, but they're asked to do much more for the same amount of money or less. So I think that needs to be reflected somewhere, that needs to be held somewhere, that you cannot have more for less anywhere. And the payback of this is burnout, more staff. And I'm not even bringing Brexit into the equation, what we've lost because of that. But what we're ongoingly going to lose if we do not value people we've left behind. That's all.
All I can say is here, that's exactly the storm we're in, both within our health service and our social care system and our education system across the board. The public sector is definitely struggling, and it is difficult, which is why I was particularly pleased to hear Sue remind us to look after ourselves, that those of us who are working at the front line, as we all do, in supporting others to do their job. It's so important that we do think about ourselves and are kind to ourselves and compassionate to ourselves, and permission to look after ourselves, to put that oxygen mask on, to use that terminology that's used. I think that's greatly important. Good pace. Any other questions? Any other thoughts? Forever hold. Good. Okay.
Plenty of time now. We have an hour and a quarter, so just enjoy lunch. Do come back, please. And at 1:15, Liz is going to take us all in a little mindfulness exercise before we start the afternoon session. Okay, thanks again.
Okay, so I have the role this afternoon of capturing all of your lovely thoughts, and I'm sure they are going to be really lovely because it's been such a wonderful day. But we have 3 very simple questions that we want to summarise the day with.
If you'd like to become a member of the group, they meet 3 or 4 times a year over a curl-up sandwich during lunch. No, that's not fair, actually, it's some great food to serve. And each time these cluster groups meet, they have a session, something to do with mental health, whether it's dementia. Okay, and finally, just really, I'm going to thank them at the end, but a big thank you to all my colleagues who've worked so hard with me to put this conference on today. Principally to all of you for coming today. It looks like you've enjoyed it. We've ticked a few boxes and hit a few home runs, so I hope you have. But we will, in due time, I'd like to work with Steve and Courtney and others to produce something from this, perhaps a report or something, and some direction about where we go from here. But on a personal note, thank you for sharing a day in the life of the cathedral. This is what we do. So thank you all, and safe journey home. Thank you.